growth and class stratification on the one hand, and on the other, the unprecedented buildup of prisons. How did we get here? How do we explain it? And how is it that crime has been so powerful an ideology that has really colored the way all Americans think? I'm going to end with an economic picture of what has happened economically to this nation over the last 30 years. In the 1990s, a Harvard economist said the following, that between 1973 and 1978, the United States saw the largest transfer of wealth that had ever happened in the history of the world. And that transfer of wealth happened from the bottom of society to the top. He said that when that kind of massive transfer of wealth had happened, it happened because of a military coup or a revolution. In the United States, it happened without a fight. How did that happen? The same week, literally, that he published that study, the New York Times ran a 7-part series called The Downsizing of America. In that series, the journalist said that Americans are 5 times more likely to be the victim of a layoff than of a violent crime, but the majority of Americans are running around thinking that the problem is the crazy black people in ghettos who are ready to pounce on them and devastate and destroy their lives in the suburbs. So what we see emerging is that crime and crime ideology and the racism behind it was about scapegoating African Americans. It was about scapegoating immigrants. It was about scapegoating black welfare queens. Remember that? And essentially confusing the white working class about the real issue in American society, which is essentially the end of the American dream. But black people got blamed for that, when in fact that was the policy of the 1%. There's another element to this which is quite disturbing. Imprisonment and this mass industry of incarceration is the 3rd largest employer in the nation. The 3rd largest employer in the United States is the carceral apparatus, this industry that includes judges and courts and clerks and guards and the people who feed the prisoners. It's an apparatus that we can't wrap our heads around. But I want to ask you, what kind of society do we live in that employs people to incarcerate other human beings? A society that is organized around imprisonment is a society that is doomed to fall like the Titanic.
Right, that's right.
Part of what ends up happening is that mass incarceration ends up becoming a job program for white working class people in the most remote corners of the United States. Those people too were affected by deindustrialization. And the racism of the criminalization of black people, of immigrants, in many ways is fueling their livelihood. I think that we have to go from this panel and this event and say what Martin Luther King said 40 years ago. America, you must be reborn again. A nation that incarcerates so many of its people is a nation where the notion of democracy and freedom is completely being eroded. And I want to say about black people. It's not about immigrants. It's not just about the people who are affected by this. The horror in Abu Ghraib. Remember what happened in Abu Ghraib in 2004? That American soldiers were dehumanizing and torturing the people that they had conquered in Iraq. Abu Ghraib could not have happened had that level of torture and dehumanization not already have been made in American society against ordinary Americans, African Americans, and the like. Today, there is a lot of conversation about the National Security Agency, the NSA. Now the government is surveilling everybody. Well, that kind of systematic surveillance was made mainstream and accepted and normalized against people of color. So they start with us, they start with the people at the bottom of society, and they move on to the rest of the nation. I think this is the beginning of an incredible journey. I think that we need to take this to neighborhoods across the country, and ultimately I think that we will be victorious because someone once said that there is something in the soul that cries for justice and freedom. And we're on our way to victory.
All right.